Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. I've noticed podcasting is way more fun when my mic is unmuted. Welcome to the stream today. I have the great pleasure of hosting Kelsey Kenny to talk about why ivermectin is a depopulation strategy. So this is kind of wild. I've already lost access to two of my platforms today. Rockefeller I'd already been kicked off of, and X is not going to work today. So I'm live to Facebook and YouTube and Rumble and Vigilante TV. I have already received some attacks for this information, which I find fascinating, sad, and a sign at the same time. So without further ado, I am going to bring Kelsey on. Hello, Kelsey.
Hi, Beth.
Welcome. Hi.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I was telling you earlier before we started the stream that I definitely couldn't be on this trail without you. And I have always instinctively known, well, not always at all, but since I've been severely injured by pharmaceuticals, I instinctively know to avoid them at all cost. And, even the over-the-counter stuff that it's tempting to take a painkiller here and there or whatever, I just finally went, yeah, my liver's like totally done with those things. And I'll just say hello to Sane Lady in the chat. So great to have you here. And if anybody else is out there, please do join the chat on one of these streams. It'll come across through Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. All of these all of these live streams get uploaded as podcasts, so you can catch them after the fact as recordings on Spotify and iTunes and a bunch of other platforms like that. Hello, Demented Doris. I always love your name. Jackie K is here. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here. And so Kelsey Kenny is a cell and molecular biologist. And I wonder if I could just turn it over to you to introduce yourself more. You've got quite a lengthy bio that is posted in the show notes, so you can read a lot more about her journey. I've interviewed Kelsey already, so you could go back and hear more about her personal health journey that led her to this. But do you want to say more about, particularly, and this is not a challenge, of course, but what qualifies you to be talking about this, where the natural health freedom movement has been promoting this substance and they feel right in it and they feel good in it, and they tell me that it's safe, effective, and cheap. And I'm talking natural health food groups that are grassroots and go to the end of the earth for the best possible food that they know to be. Can't hold anything against them what they don't know already. And it alarmed me. And then I heard someone was by a natural health practitioner was treated a woman who was deathly ill already with ivermectin, and that alarmed me. And I decided, if there's some hills to die on, one or two, that's not my own work that I do, and certainly would die on that hill, this is one of them. So yeah, if you'd like to say more about yourself, that'd be awesome before we get started.
Sure. Well, I also very much toxified myself and didn't know it at the time. And then I willingly toxified myself thinking that I had Lyme disease and, treating it with antibiotics. And my view at many antibiotics. And my view at the time was, well, I gotta kill this bug, quote unquote, and before it kills me. So I have to take these toxic things. So I was even worse than, maybe some people who were onto natural health from the beginning. And then of course I tried to do more natural health. And then I found out that, that's kind of the same thing in a lot of ways. So basically I got onto the biology thing because I got really sick at around 16. I got very severe aplastic anemia. And in a nutshell, that means my bone marrow was failing and I couldn't make platelets, red blood cells, white blood cells, any of that. Your bone marrow makes all of that. And I found out later through, kind of a rabbit hole with Dr. Smith's work that it was the retin A micro that I had been taking for a year prior that was the straw that broke the camel's back, basically. And, I was taking that for acne and, that killed my bone marrow. So, ever since then, I went to college trying to figure out what happened to me, because most of the time when people get that very rare condition, they never find out what happened or why it is. They just call it quote unquote idiopathic, which is a very fitting term because they say they have no idea what causes that. And 23 years later, I finally figured it out, that it was the vitamin A derivative, tretinoin cream, that caused that. So that was so cathartic to find out and to figure it out and to connect all these dots together for why I was sick and what was happening to me. And to circle back to the ivermectin thing, it was realizing that pharmaceuticals aren't the cure for anything. They are symptom suppressors, and that's why they appear to work. And I'm a rebel too, so yes, I did buy some. I was already taking HCQ. I think I can say drug names on here, hopefully. Those don't seem to get flagged for some reason. I was taking hydroxychloroquine for a year prior to the lockdowns and everything. So I was familiar with that one. And I just being a natural rebel, I bought into that, but I did not for a while know the deeper layer to go beyond that, to see the reverse psychology that was going on. And I got to give credit to Dr. Dimitri Katz for campaigning against that stuff, and ivermectin and HCQ and all the other things. It really opened my mind. Like, I wasn't taking that stuff, but I did have it, and I did buy into that, thinking that was the alternative to the pokes. And so I don't want anybody to feel bad if they've taken it or if they've promoted it or anything. I got fooled too, and I'm a very, very intelligent person, and it got me too. But as soon as I found out, I also started speaking out about it, and tried to look deeper into the psychology of what had happened there, and kind of the magician's trick that they had played on us. And I think once you see the trick and how it's done, it doesn't work as well. It's not quite as effective. So that's why I kind of focus on in the presentation of kind of the psychology of this, to show you the trick, the sleight of hand that they're doing with this stuff.
That's brilliant. I love that. I want to respond to a few things. How we've been indoctrinated into this kill or be killed kind of framework. And as far as I know, unless it's a psyop, that's your reptile brain. That's the one that lives right in this moment. Can I eat it, or is it going to eat me? And this is not the whole of us, right? It's part of us, but it's not the whole of us. And then it's based on what you called yourself a natural rebel. That's such a good term, Kelsey, because that's exactly what I am. That's exactly what all my friends are. We rejected mainstream, but then picked up this other, what we consider to be a good system, but it was equally or even more weaponized than the mainstream, because the mainstream tends not to think and question where we do. And so they had to create quite a wall of, so-called research and all of that, stuff that really often doesn't back up to nearly anything hill of beans. So I just wanted to mention that. Your story, and I believe mine is, I've been told this many times, is a beacon of hope, because you were so far gone, but here you are, and having made incredible progress in your own health, and you're smart as a whip. So I just want people to know, I did have someone email me, and they said that they had taken ivermectin themselves. They had also given it to their children. She says, can you heal from this? So I want to make sure that that's a substantial part of what we talk about today, because it's not hopeless by any stretch of the imagination. I'm living proof. Kelsey is living proof.
And thank you for mentioning that. I don't want to scare anybody today. Certainly, if they've taken it, that's why partially why I'm focusing more on the psychology. I think you can totally heal from ivermectin damage or pharmaceutical damage, and our bodies are really smart and they know what to do. If you are not taking more toxins and suppressing symptoms, then if you can even get to 51% towards healing, then that's, that's the way back. That's the way to progress.
Yeah, you tip the scale, and that's what I've always said since I healed from cancer, that I don't know how to heal from cancer, but energy does. And when it's in excess, when there's at least 51% more life energy than there is death energy, who knows? It's hard to prove those numbers, but it was definitely a sense that as soon as it's like a rice paddy, when it fills up, looks like nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. And all of a sudden, whoosh, it goes over to the next level and completely transforms the terrain. So yeah, this is not hopeless by any stretch of imagination. I know I might be a little fear porny, because every time someone tries to sell me ivermectin or tries to push it or fights against me, I always start with, this is a very dangerous drug. And I think that's still true, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Our bodies are amazingly strong. It's the life in the body that's strong, because if you go and you talk to a dead body, there ain't any strength there, and it doesn't heal from anything. So it's the life that's in every single cell of your body. I want to wave the flag for that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know you have a presentation that you'd like to show. And in addition to the psychology, which is very important, I'd also love to focus on the science, because that's almost always how people come after you and make you prove your claim. And it is a very big claim. So I'm open to all of that. I believe your presentation would contain all of it. I like to stress that you are a cell and molecular biologist, really trained in the science. And you guys read medical papers and science papers like a boss, and you're teaching all of us to do it. I want to shout out to the Nutrition Detective channel on YouTube, where you can learn so much. I never get tired, even if I've already seen a video, which is not possible because there's so many of them. I'm putting a link here in the chat, and I do highly recommend to subscribe to that, to learn how to read science for yourself in a way that will actually help you.
Yep, I was trained to read research papers, and now I'm at the beginning and come to the same conclusions as the researchers perhaps, but now I know how to read them and get the truth, and basically chew on the meat and spit out the bones. So, and that's not something everybody can do. Like we'll talk about why ivermectin quote unquote looks good in the research, and we can talk about the science behind why some people felt relief from it, because I think that's very important, because I want to acknowledge that yes, some people did feel better on it. That's true, and I don't want to discount that. So I would definitely like to explain what happened there.
Nice. I had a colleague that said that her dad's prostate cancer, the tumor reduced vastly in its mass, and I'd love you to address why that would be as well. I can take a guess myself, but
sure.
Yeah. All right. Shall I share your screen now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Your presentation, I meant. And I'll take the banner down so that it doesn't go on top. Okay. Good.
Can you see it on the screen? Okay.
Yes,
is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect.
All right. Okay. So we'll go in, and feel free to add questions or commentary. And this will be kind of a shorter version of the presentation I did with Dr. Garrett Smith. You can find that on his YouTube channel, and he goes more into the science as well of the toxicity of that stuff. So I think that's a very good resource if you want to know more of this, but this will be more of a short and condensed version. People have complained that one is too long, but so I'll try to give you just the facts for this version. Okay, so are we ready?
Yes, good to go.
Okay, let's go. Okay.
I'm just going to grab a link to that original video so I can share as well.
Sure, great. Okay, so so we'll start with the title here. I think everybody has heard that it's a Nobel Prize winner. So we have a Nobel Prize and some ivermectin tablets for humans, and we have the paste, which I'm sure people have heard about as well. And then, oh, who's this? This is Bill Gates. And most people don't expect to see Bill Gates associated with parasites. So we'll talk about why Bill Gates is involved, because that doesn't seem like something he would do. He's supposed to be, Mr. Pokey guy, and sending the pokes to Africa and all that. And we'll talk about his involvement with the whole parasite panic, as I like to call it too. Okay, so a little bit about reverse psychology. I think this is a good example to start with. And, this may be a fable or something, but I think it's still appropriate. I'll just read it out here. Okay, so in 1821, the people of Greece rose up against the Ottoman Empire that had conquered the ailing Roman Empire and its dependent territories in 1453. Life under the Turkish yoke had been hard, and John Capodistrias, the man chosen by the Greeks in 1827 to lead their newly liberated nation, faced daunting problems of industry and education, but his first arrival, he had more pressing issue: food. He saw potatoes as the answer and left piles of them for Greek farmers to take away and plant in their empty fields. The farmers, however, suspecting some trick, wouldn't touch them. So Capodistrias placed the piles of unwanted potatoes under armed guard. The farmers now suspected that the potatoes were a delicacy reserved for the rich and began to steal them, while the guards pretended not to notice. Soon, not a single one was left. Okay, so what can we learn from that? All right, that's a little bit of reverse psychology. So these people who had been under these oppressive regimes didn't trust their government, didn't trust the mainstream media, I guess, for what it was back in the time. And they tended to want to do the opposite of, whatever they were saying. So this idea that you couldn't have these potatoes, that they were kept from you, that they were secret, that they were you weren't supposed to have them, was too tempting for them to resist. Essentially, they made them look special. It's the forbidden fruit effect. And I think the same thing can be applied to the whole ivermectin thing. It's been presented as forbidden fruit. You can't have it. You can't get it. The quote unquote pharma cartel doesn't want you to have it, doesn't want you to learn about it. It's suppressed, it's censored, all those things. And you can kind of almost directly tie it in to the potatoes of our time. We're not supposed to have this ivermectin stuff. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
I'll jump in quickly and I'll say that this works because I work with archetypes, and the first archetype on the hero's journey is the child. And so this is a direct appeal to the child archetype, that and rebel, by the way, which the rebel is directly after the child. And so the child is vulnerable to that because they're looking for their cue to the other. You use reverse psychology on a child. You generally don't use it out of respect. You don't use it on your adult friends. You're not, hopefully not trying to manipulate them. I know that, of course, does happen anyway. But and then you get stuck in the rebel going, oh, they don't want me to have it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it at all cost. And so that's how we're hooked in two archetypes.
Yeah, that's an excellent connection you made there. Absolutely. And then, parenting books that I've read talk about always give a child a choice. So to make them feel like they have control, right? So that's what they were giving us. They were giving us two choices that were acceptable to them. And that's what I've admittedly done with my children. I give them two choices that were acceptable to me, not to them necessarily. Of course, it was for their own good, but in this case, it's not for our own good. It's something that both the pokies and the paste both lead down to the same end goal, which is depopulation, we think, lowered fertility, and poisoning, long-term poisoning. Okay.
Yeah, very good.
Okay. And another factor, this is kind of related to reverse psychology, is called inoculation theory. And, we know the pokies don't work and everything, but we'll just, kind of still work with the metaphor here, is that if you're exposed to and if you're exposed to an attitude that you don't like, that you're going to rebel against, then when you're presented with the alternative, it 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 goes deeper. It feels like more organic to you. So if you present something, the alternative, as ridiculous, oppressive, evil, even, then it feels so much more strongly to connect to the alternative of that. And you'll fight against the alternative, and you'll go with the other alternative that's been presented to you. So I'm sure everybody remembers, it wasn't that long ago, all the craziness, the dancing nurses, they filled in skate parks, they had, just ridiculous bureaucrats in charge, and they were not secretive about Fauci's evil experiments and his history with the National Institutes of Health, the oppressive guidelines, the misinformation, the contradictory information. All that was, I think, intentionally laughable, intentionally weak, and intentionally presented to you by the alternative media to make you very resistant to it, and at the same time more open to what they were telling you was pushback against all this ridiculous stuff. And so the theory posits that weak counter arguments, so that would be the ridiculous mainstream COVID stuff, generate resistance within the receiver, enabling them to maintain their beliefs in the face of a future stronger attack. Following exposure to weak counter arguments, because it was presented to us as very weak stuff. It was a total clown show. Then it was all so easy to refute. Then that held attitude or belief becomes more strongly like they're using an inoculation theory. So it was the counterattack that would become more strongly ingrained in you. The rebellion was deeper and stronger and harder to overcome. So that's kind of the idea that I think they were using there. Okay, so more examples of kind of the ridiculousness is when the FDA is telling you, this is a famous tweet, you are not a horse, you are not a cow, stop the ivermectin. And then you had Anthony Fauci, who was intentionally revealed to you through alternative media how awful he was. So when he tells you, he's actually, I think, was the best ivermectin salesman, because he's an evil guy and he's telling you not to take it. And that makes a lot of people think that you should have it, that it's good for you, that he's trying to hide it from you because his agenda is to sell pokies. Of course, we know that's not the case, but I think he did a very good job of that. And then you had these supposed, oppressed people who were trying to fight and give ivermectin to people, and they kind of pretended like they were being oppressed, they were being suppressed and censored. It turns out they really weren't. And we can get into that later, or you can watch the full presentation for more. And then also we had Dr. Corey, who was kind of the early advocate for these medical treatment of COVID, coming out in the Senate committee. He was on television talking about this too. And just so everybody knows, if you see something on television, if you see something like a Senate thing, you're supposed to see that. That is a show for you. So the fact that he was even there talking about it should be a red flag for everybody, because, the Senate's not going to present you with something that they don't want you to see. So that's kind of a reverse psychology thing there too.
And I'll just add to that because the mainstream media is clearly dying, they have shifted their focus to what we consider to be alternative media. So don't think that just because it's a Del Bigtree or a Joe Rogan or who is that scary guy who yells on the desk all the time? Can't remember his name offhand, but oh, there he is. What's his?
Alex Jones, yeah.
Alex Jones. There you go. Yeah, yeah. So just know that we are entirely infiltrated in this so-called movement thing, whatever it is, and so yeah, this just because somebody says some good things. And when we've got, RFK is one of these main drug pushers out there. And yeah, he has said some good things, but it's not what it appears. It's just to get you into the fold of their narrative and their rhetoric, and then to accept everything that they say. A lot of people pride themselves, oh, I just take the good and leave the bad. But do you sit and research every single stupid thing that they say? Or does your brain get tired and just start to take it in?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these people gained credibility before the COVID-19 thing by saying a lot of truth. And a common expression is they will tell you 99 truths just to fit in one big lie. And Alex Jones has presented a lot of truth. Joe Rogan has presented a lot of truth. A lot of these people gained their credibility with the rebellious among us by talking about how toxic the pokey was. And it is toxic. But that doesn't mean everything they're saying is true and right. That doesn't mean the alternatives they're presenting with you are also correct. And you can't, you're right. It is hard to distinguish sometimes and to figure out, especially if they're presenting you with a high amount of truth. It can be very difficult. So, and let's see if this will play. So Alex Jones supposedly took ivermectin live on camera. So let's see if we can get that to play.
What's all this? What's going on here? Here, let's just open it up for you. Didn't get this at a Tractor Supply because I've been like Santa Claus taking care of everybody. Hours a day for months. Taking care of people. Overhead shot, please. You know what this is? This is ivermectin for humans that won a Nobel Prize as an antiviral. And this is inhalable, or these are the tablets, steroids. So let me show you. I was going to do this anyways earlier. See this? See this, Fauci? You see this, Bill Gates? I'm going to kill those prions, you bastard murderers. You're going to hit me with a bioweapon, you monster. You want to suppress me? You want to kill me, you son of a bitch? You goddamn demon? You think I'm easy to kill? Think I'm going to roll over to your crap? No. And Joe Rogan kicked your murdering ass, too. You'd love to bury him, too, you little monster maggot.
Sorry, hang on just a sec. So, what did we see here? It looks like he didn't take it. I think he knows what he's doing. That was a very impressive piece of propaganda. He's getting angry for you. He's, you don't like people. You don't like Fauci. You're afraid of this prion disease. They said that people were going to get from the pokies. You're not, by the way. And you can see why it's easy to be manipulated. And then, here's another example. You have in this one, you have Joe Rogan interviewing Bill Maher, who's supposed to be kind of a moderate, and he's just kind of a cool guy and everything. And they're talking about it. And I want to remind people might not remember this, but Joe Rogan got $160 million Spotify deal shortly after the lockdowns. And you got to wonder, where did that money come from? I don't think it came from Spotify. I tend to believe that maybe that was filtered through some pharma money. So, and especially based on what he's been promoting. So let's take a look. Joe Rogan talking to Bill Maher about ivermectin.
Okay.
I mean, what about the way they demonize the ivermectin thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a drug, not a politician.
Right.
I mean, why that something like that would ever become politicized, especially a drug that I believe when it first came out in 2015, was it? I think it won the Nobel Prize.
Yes.
Okay. I think it wiped out some disease in Africa.
Yellow fever.
Yellow fever.
It's an antiparasitic, but it stops viral replication in vitro. It does have some sort of an effect, and I'm actually going to have a debate about it with this scientist and another guy who doesn't believe in it. It's a fascinating thing because
it's like getting mad at aspirin.
right.
It's like, if it works for you, and it plainly works for some people and works on a lot of things, I just don't understand that mentality.
Well, you know why they did it, right?
Well, I mean, it certainly was important if you wanted to create a monopoly for the vaccine.
Well, not just a monopoly, but the Emergency Use Authorization Act. In order to utilize the Emergency Use Authorization, they had to have no other remedies. There was no other effective treatment. And so any effective treatment, specifically one that was, I mean, at the time, COVID or ivermectin rather had been around long enough that it was generic. So no one owned the patent on it. So anyone can manufacture it. It was like 7 cents a dose. It's nothing. It costs nothing.
Well, we can't have that.
We can't have that.
No.
And that's also why they tried to discourage and then eventually suppress people from getting.
Okay, so in that was a lot there. Even at that short clip, you see that they are instilling people with several counterpoints that you hear over and over and over again. Nobel Prize, safer than aspirin, wonder drug. It's just a drug. Pharma doesn't make any money off of it. It's off patent. They only didn't want you to use it because they wanted to make money on pokes. So that's the false dichotomy, the false choice. It's either pokes or paste. And so that was a very impressive piece of propaganda, and kind of implying that you're not being reasonable if you don't consider it as an alternative.
And the manipulation. I was just going to add the manipulation of saying it's a drug, not a politician. So all of a sudden we love him because he knows politicians are poison, right? So you're right away end up with empathy for him and see him as a good guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then, the reasonable guy, and he's straddled the line for years, and a lot of stuff he says is correct. And a lot of the guests on Rogan say a lot of truth, but again, that's to sneak up. That's to sneak in the very big lie, which is that ivermectin is just as much a tool, if not more so, of the powers that be's their agenda. And I won't name them. It's too big of a topic, but the powers that be is the term I like to use. So these are the people that don't have our best interests at heart. They're seemingly trying to lower the population and manipulate us and siphon as much attention and energy and money as they can, because money is energy too.
Exactly.
And that seems to be the case.
Yeah.
So with the counter, go ahead.
Quickly, Kelsey, I wanted to add that I did a training last year on the archetypes of controlled opposition. And this is teaching people how to look for the patterns. So I don't want to be the one that's always calling out Joe Rogan and Alex Jones and all of these guys, even though I just did that. But to train yourself to see there are archetypes that are very clear and distinct. And every time I saw one, or I saw two, or I saw three, it's like, yeah, this is pretty likely that they're using these strategies. So that's where I would like people to focus their attention rather than trying to figure out if somebody's good or not. Learn the patterns overall, and then you don't have to go down every single rabbit hole.
And investigate everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. And for this training, you'll have to actually ask me for it. It's not public anymore because it got a lot of good and bad attention, of course. So just leave me a note on my website letting me know that you want to see the archetypes of controlled op.
Very cool. Very cool. I'd be interested in that too. Yeah, it's like teach a person to fish, right? Teach them to spot the patterns of what's going on here. And, this is appealing to very black and white thinking, which is, a childlike thing that they do. Is something is all good or all bad or all correct or all false. And this is an example of it. We have Fauci dressed up as this evil guy, and here's this guy in a horse costume who's really strong and going to save you. And this is the evil versus good. And this is just a screenshot from people selling ivermectin hydroxychloroquine. And You can order it. It's so easy. I mean, it was laughably easy to get it. And despite what they told you, oh, it's very hard to get, they want to suppress it, it's out of stock everywhere. It wasn't. And we can totally go into just how available that was the entire time.
Yeah. And people in the alternative health world have made millions of dollars on ivermectin. Just so you know, I've been hearing behind the scenes. I'm not going to call anybody out that you just had on screen there.
They have. And one thing that kind of helps with the understanding the brainwashing too is just seeing these bots show up every time the ivermectin is mentioned. There's obviously money to be made, showing that it was in constant supply is a little bit of a thinker, things that make you go because if the drug companies are losing so much money, and then why was it always available? Why wouldn't they stop making it? And for years too, you'd think if it was curing, A through Z, including the coof, they would have stopped making it. Plenty of generic medications make money. There's generics for just about everything. After 12 years, patents run out. And for some reason, generic companies spring up and they make generic drugs and they make money. If the pharmaceutical company doesn't make money on something, they're not going to put it out there. And that's something that people have a hard time understanding. And they really tried to tell people, oh, it's only 7 cents a dose, that, they're donating it in Africa, and it cures all these things, and it was super safe over there. And that's just part of the propaganda. So here's just a cheat sheet. I think is a really good way to spot propaganda. Activate strong emotions. I think that's what Alex Jones was doing. Scare people about spikes and transmission of spike proteins. So, they don't want to interact with us. They don't want to, we don't want to interact with vaccinated people, and they don't want to interact with us because, we might be contaminated. They simplify everything. Like it's really simple to put on a horse costume, and pretend you're in a rebellion here of good and evil. And what was I going to say about that? Black and white, very childlike, evil versus good. It responds to your needs and values. They used a lot of Christian propaganda too, saying that ivermectin was a gift from God and it's all natural. It's far from natural. But they were saying it was like, it was meant to be. It was God's medicine. And that was particularly heinous, I think, is to appeal to people's religious values in that way. And also the need to feel good, to feel like a good person as well. I think that a lot of people share that, and people really thought that they were doing good by sneaking it to friends and family, by spreading the word about this, by trying to spread information. And all those talking points, they actually came from Merck. Even calling it a wonder drug or safer than aspirin, that's straight out of their playbook. Attack opponents, we saw a lot of that. They did an us versus them, a red versus blue, and that tends to suppress more critical thinking. When we feel like we're fighting something, when we feel like we're being oppressed, we want to lash out harder. And then they supplied us with heroes. Albert Pike, one of the most famous Masons, said, "Whenever the people need a hero, we shall supply him." And they supplied plenty of heroes. This is just a few of the heroes that we were presented with. The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. And I think that's definitely what's seen here. Here's just some examples of the religious stuff. This guy who basically ran a drug mill, this Dr. Paul Merrick, he used religious arguments. This comes from a channel called Refuge of Sinners, and they have the cross prominently displayed. This God, soil, man, and ivermectin just appealing to the Bible and everything, and people's thoughts that this was the big, the big tribulation that we were going to go through, and this was a prophecy for the end times and everything. And yeah, so this in particular was pretty repulsive to me to see this stuff. Okay, let's see if there's anything. This is just more propaganda. Okay, and these are the heroes. They had tours, with all these doctors, these frontline doctor types. There was Telegram chats about the use of this horse stuff. We had silly, mocking videos of this guy taking the pace. So that's a very childlike thing to do, and one of the reasons why they got so much into the horse mocking thing is actually for legal reasons. I can talk about that later, the legal loopholes that they use to advertise this stuff to you.
I didn't know there was a World Ivermectin Day. My gosh.
I know there is. Yeah, that's Dr. Tess Laurie's thing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll make a note about the legal loopholes to ask you later.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, sure, because it's kind of interesting. I don't think anybody else has talked about that. And then this was also propaganda going around to get some people back to the vaccine, as they told some people that Trump's vaccine was actually hydroxy.
Kelsey?
Yeah.
That word is highly censorable, so we have to leave it out.
Right. Okay, sorry. I was doing good on that for a while, but I tend to forget. Okay, they told people that Trump's pokies were actually HCQ, IVM, and Zithromax. So, and I even saw some propaganda saying that the chemtrails, sea trails, had HCQ and IVM in them as well, which was kind of sad to hear that propaganda.
There you go. Yeah, I don't think you need to censor every single word, but it doesn't hurt anyway. I know. I think
pokies is probably the most touchy one. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. And so, then it kind of became mainstream. This is like ABC News, coming out. They started to do a turnaround. You saw, what's his name? What's his name? The liberal guy that was on CNN. He started saying that he took IVM. It's at the tip of my tongue. Cuomo. Is it Cuomo?
Oh, the
brother.
The mayor.
The brother of the governor. Yeah.
The governor of New York, I believe. Or is that right? Yeah. Someone can confirm in the chat.
Chris Cuomo.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a show, and he's so they're even like the mainstream. They allowed the mainstream to kind of soften up on this stuff and do a kind of a turnaround too, just to, I think to kind of open up their minds for even people who had been poked to take this stuff in the future, or people who had been poked and, maybe didn't feel good and started to question their decision, or had ill health effects, for them to maybe turn around and try to take IVM in order to help their symptoms from being poked. So that was kind of interesting. All right, so let's talk about some of these rebels here and how they made money. So a lot of telehealth stuff came up, huge thousands of dollars for consults with some of these names here. Scheduling with Dr. Corey was like $1,500 just to see you for a few minutes and to basically just prescribe you IVM or HCQ. I mean, these were his options basically. This is all he did for $1,500. It's crazy. And then Peter McCullough, he was a big name early on too. If you go on to Open Payments website, you can see just how much he got paid by all these pharmaceutical companies. And if you look at his protocol, it's all pharma. It's all pharma as a presented to you as a choice against pharma. So that way they all win. Yeah, this is not a little bit amount of money. This is a lot of money. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. Yeah. For those of you that didn't catch it, I hosted Alex Zek for an interview on Friday, and he really called out Peter McCullough. So that's a really good one to check in with there.
Yeah, that's a pretty big red flag there. Okay. And then, it's the Justice Department kind of put on their big boy pants and kind of put a little bit of the brakes on all this telehealth, but they got charged $4.5 billion. I haven't checked up on this, but a lot of telehealths were implicated in, people just calling up, and a nurse practitioner, would spend about 5 minutes to prescribe people these toxic drugs. And they made so much money on that, because that's all they had to do. A doctor can prescribe just about anything off label for any reason. Doctors weren't really being suppressed or censured, because they're allowed to do this. They're allowed to prescribe ivermectin for whatever condition that they think is appropriate with their training. They're legally allowed to do this. So for the propaganda to tell you that they were being kicked out of hospitals and to having their license taken away, that wouldn't stand up on a medical board at all, because they were acting within their power to do so, to prescribe these drugs. And then this is just one example. Simone Gold, who is supposedly a medical doctor and has a law degree. I don't know how you have time for that, but she would charge people $5,000 just for an initial inquiry. Okay, so she's not even promising to see you for $5,000. If you, and there's only a 60% chance that she'll even, go beyond that. And then for that, the cost is usually $25,000 for cases that require ongoing attention from 1 to 6 months. That's a big span. The cost is $50,000. So to get Simone's attention and care, that could cost up to $50,000 a month. So,
and you're going to be poisoned in the process.
Yes, you are not going to do well on that. Okay, so like I was talking about earlier, it was really easy to get this stuff. It was not hard at all. You could do the telehealth thing that popped up everywhere. Even Medicare was covering up. The payments for Medicare for ivermectin went up about, I think it was 17,000%. So Medicare was paying for it for people that wanted to do it. And you could go on all these websites here, all these farm websites, and just get it without a prescription. No problem. The paste, the pour-on, the injectable, which people were literally using. It was very easy to get. And I was watching all this as this happened. Nobody seemed to be out at any time, even on Amazon. Like, if you had 2 brain cells to rub together, you could get this stuff. It was, despite what they said, it was not being what's it called? It was not being blockaded in any way.
Yeah, I was confused because it is a prescription drug and nobody needs a prescription for it. So like, what's up with that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So are a lot of things like Fenben. And Mendazole, that's coming out, and methylene blue is a prescription drug. So why are those allowed to be sold so easily and without a prescription, but so many others are not? And,
exactly.
Yeah.
I saw a natural health company advertising to me on Facebook, and it was a bottle of a supplement. I can't remember which one, and then a bottle of ivermectin right next to each other. And I'm like, oh my goodness, right? It couldn't have been more obvious to me anyway.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah. Exactly. It's all available on Amazon. Exactly.
Yeah. And then, we had a bunch of, more telehealth and doctors promoting this. This is, what's her name? Stella Emanuel. And she's telling people, they're basically telling people, stick it to big pharma by buying pharma. And here's their readiness pack, right? They scared everybody into thinking that they need to protect themselves from the couve. And these are hardcore antibiotics. Zofran is an anti-nausea, I think. Fluconazole is fluoridated azole drug. That's also an anti-parasitic and a detox inhibitor. Flagyl is like a last resort kind of antibiotic. So let me see if I can read these other things. And Augmentin, these are bad news. And, packed up in a little pretty seafoam green case. And the wellness company, the amazing Polly on Twitter, at Fringe Views on Twitter, she goes into more about the wellness company and the shadiness behind that. And then there's also All Day Chemist is where I got some ivermectin pills when I didn't know better. It was very easy. They even take credit cards. I'm not trying to advertise for them. Please don't do this. But it was super easy. This wasn't hard. This is just something you could like Google, and anybody could do it with a mouse and an internet connection could find this stuff. It was not hard to do. Or, David Avocado Wolf, who's supposedly a health guy, was selling this stuff. And the only way they got around it is by advertising it as a veterinary medicine, wink, wink, and then selling it as Sasquatch stickers and lifesavers instead of, what they actually were. So that was a very obvious ploy there. Okay, and then we can talk about. Go ahead.
Just so you know, we had a hater show up in my Rumble feed, and they're removed now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so then there was also, if you didn't go the telehealth route, there was plenty of online support. One of the worst offenders was Dirt Road Discussions on Telegram, and that at its peak, I think, had about 250,000 members, all using this stuff, all talking about it. They would tell you how much of the paste to take. They would give people dosing guidelines up to 2 months old. So they were recommending this for like babies. Like 6 to 16 pounds, I think, was the lowest dose. So that would be like a newborn. They were giving people recipes to put it in their eyes. Like, this stuff literally makes people blind. And here they are putting it directly into the eyes. And just to get it past the blood-brain barrier more easily, they were putting it in neti pots. I mean, it was very bad. And I have thousands of screenshots of people reporting terrible symptoms from this, terrible side effects, which they would brush off as detoxing, as Herxheimer effect. If you don't know what that is, it's named after Dr. Jerish and Dr. Herxheimer. It's supposedly when you take an antibiotic and the organism dies, it releases toxins, and then you don't feel good. But there's no such thing. Basically, there's no way to tell the difference between something like that, if it does exist, if the organism is full of toxins and breaks open and lets them out, or the toxicity of the drugs itself. You'll never know. There's no way to distinguish, and nobody's trying to find out. So people, were brushing this off as a detox reaction, as a Herxheimer reaction, and it was just toxicity. They were being toxified by this stuff.
I want to jump in. Someone mentioned how every single health-oriented group, somebody's recommending it. And so get brave and share this with them and give them the chance. Don't be mean to them. Don't call them out. Don't shame them. They don't know. They don't know better, but give them a chance to get the information. That's my hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to shame. There's certainly good people and people who think they're on the side of good that are trying to say that this is good, and we're just trying to present them with the information, like you said. Okay, so we were talking about how are they able to do all this advertising? Well, what's the loophole that allowed them to advertise? Well, there's this department, this government department called the Office of Prescription Drug Promotion. And they regulate all sorts of drugs. Like when you see an ad on TV and they show you all these happy people with this drug, and then they show you the side effects, blah, 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 blah. They're supposed to do that because of this this company. I'm sorry, this government department, and how drugs are advertised. It's very specific. The loophole They do not regulate the promotion of drugs for animals. Okay, so they don't care if you're pretending to market this to a horse because you have a bunch of horse pictures. You're allowed to say whatever you want, basically. You don't have to put the side effects. You don't have to put you can provide dosing information. You don't have to say, ask your doctor more. You can just pretty much say whatever you want about the drug. You don't have to present alternative research or anything like with some of these, or contraindications, or for example, like if somebody had a deficiency and couldn't take this drug, you don't have to tell them about it. Or, some other condition that would prevent them from taking about it. You don't have to say anything. You can say whatever you want, as long as it seems, or at least on the surface, you are advertising drugs for animals. And that's what all the horse and cow things were about. Okay, so here's just... go ahead.
Just quickly, Avatar asked me a question. Do I think this stems from a particular archetype that people got tired of learning? They went so far and they didn't go further. And I think that is the child, because one of the things that happens on the journey, so you might be in the lover archetype where you have a strong value for the truth, and you're going to go for the truth at all cost. And then when you get fatigued, you just retrograde back into the child, which is not the bad place to be, but the shadows being denial and the fear of betrayal, and truth betrays you, right? Every time you learn that something you studied for 10 years is a lie, you feel betrayed, right? So there's my quick archetype reading about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's so right, is that, we got a little fatigued and we kept getting scared about these things, and nobody makes good decisions when they're scared. That's a lesson I had to learn over and over again, is you can't make a good decision, and they depend on that. You can't think critically when you're afraid. And so I think, that fear, and sometimes I think, well, I show people all this research, and I show people how Bill Gates is connected, and I show people that it's ivermectin is literally roach poison. Why isn't that, waking them up? Why don't they get it? Like, this should be a smoking gun. But I realize how many other things people have to accept when I tell them it's toxic. What that means is that nobody was really looking out for us during this whole thing. Nobody was really advocating for us, truly. At least the people, in our phones, the imaginary people in our phones. Nobody had our backs back then. And that's scary. That's scary to admit, and that's scary to realize. And it's also scary if somebody's given this to somebody they love too, or their children, to realize that they may have poisoned them. That's very hard to accept. So I can understand that. So I'm a little bit more, I have more sympathy when people don't get it right away.
Right. Then that's very, very important, because at the beginning it can seem like everybody's wrong. And I know I had a kind of a harsh interaction with someone, and I was just like, ivermectin is a very dangerous drug. I was so serious and so intense with her. I almost killed her with my energy. And I apologize publicly right now for that, because it doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. It's hard for me to not get really upset sometimes, especially, if I'm being attacked too, or my credibility. Yeah, I totally understandable. This is a tough subject. It's really tough. Okay, this is just some stuff that I think is a little more, energetic and woo, and maybe predictive programming, but it just seemed like it was interesting that we were talking about forbidden fruit and what's, Adam and Eve. Supposedly it was an apple. Who knows for reals? But it's just kind of interesting that the stuff is apple flavored, and apples grow on trees, right? You have the tree in the garden of good and evil. And so I just thought that was kind of a interesting connection.
I do believe you've said it several times that the war between good and evil is a complete psyop. The inner war is between life and death. And that's not really a war, it's just a perceived war. But the good and evil thing is a trap in many ways.
Wow, that's really profound. Yeah, I think so too. Okay. So I won't go too big into this, but this is the main point to get from this is that we've all had ivermectin and ivermectins for at least 45 plus years. This isn't new. Okay. It accumulates in our livestock. It accumulates in the plants. It's when they pour ivermectins for use as pesticides, ivermectins, excuse me, there's a few different forms. They're all toxic. They actually go up in the roots of plants, and then the bugs eat them and they die. So this is in our plant products and our eggs and our milk and our meat, especially in the fat, especially like you may have heard of mad cow disease. I believe that was actually ivermectin poisoning when they were feeding the organs and the brains to other cows. I believe that they were just getting dosed with a lot of ivermectin because it tends to accumulate in the fatty areas, and the brain is mostly fat. So I think that was going on there. So we've all had it for 45 plus years. So if it's so good, if it's curing cancer, if it's preventing COVID supposedly, why weren't we protected from it? We've had all these drugs for years, and chronic disease has only gone up. Autism has only gone up as we've used more and more pesticides.
Very good.
Yeah, and this is just more research. We can provide this PDF for people who want to click on all these things and find out about the accumulation of these drugs and how it's been used for years. It's definitely making money. This is $1 billion industry. When they say they don't make any money off of ivermectin, that is a complete lie.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would. I think you do address it, but I'd love to talk about the whole parasite craze. That is part of your presentation, is it not?
Yeah. We'll get to that in just.
Okay.
Yeah.
No rush.
Yeah. So this is just the various ivermectins, it's called. They don't differ by a whole lot. These are just, little groups on there, and they may differ in stability or solubility, but these are all ivermectins, and they've all been used for many years, more than they have been even for human use, starting in 1987. Okay, so this is just about damage. People are growing their own ivermectin from the paste, which is very dangerous. I believe that the tablets may still have some ability to grow. I plated them. Oops. I don't want to scare people with this, but I was kind of concerned at the time that maybe people were inoculating themselves with the bacteria that makes ivermectin. This just talks about herxing. This is just a list of things that they claim that it cures. They just come out and say this. And they say it cures all these different conditions, and there's no evidence given at all.
I like that. That's so accurate. Pain in certain parts of the body.
Yeah. And particularly sad is the discussion of giving it to children on the Learning to Fly chat. Very sad. Okay. We'll just skip over that. These are just screenshots from people's terrible toxicity symptoms, especially they reported seeing disco lights was a very common side effect of this. And that's basically brain damage. When you're seeing lights or seeing stars, like when you think of cartoons, you get bonked on the head, they're seeing stars. It's a chemical concussion, basically, when you take this stuff. It's very toxic to the brain.
Would that be the same, Kelsey, as when you see rainbows when you get a migraine?
It could be, yeah. I think that's the brain's reaction to the toxicity that's kind of getting stirred up with a migraine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, this is just more about the chats. I won't go into that. Just I have so many of these. We've even documented a few deaths, which is very sad. And it's hard to document the deaths. I don't have a lot of them just because, if somebody takes this stuff and they don't make it, obviously they're not getting back on the chat. But, I do have like secondhand information of people who had given it to a family member and they passed away.
Okay.
Okay.
And would
So
that
yeah,
be
so
over, would that be over repeated use, or would that be is there such thing as like a one dose or one-time use that would cause that?
yeah. Oh, good question. Good question. Okay, let me take a sip of water here. Okay. So we have this thing called the blood-brain barrier, and it protects us from most drugs. And this is the reason why they say it's a pesticide for bugs, but it's a neurotoxic pesticide for bugs, but it's, great for you, but because we have this blood-brain barrier. However, there are people who have this genetic variant called MDR1 deficiency, which means that their blood-brain barriers can't chuck out the drug and get it out of the barrier of the brain or out of the brain very well. So those people, which can be anywhere from 20%, depending on race, 20% to 50% of people cannot keep this drug out of their brains. And this is a neurotoxin. Okay, this is a neurotoxin for bugs. They don't have a blood-brain barrier, so it kills them right away. But if you have a poor blood-brain barrier, a poor gut barrier, a poor liver barrier, a poor testicular barrier, 20% to 50% of people are going to have less ability to keep this drug out of their very important organs. So yes, one dose can take a person out, cause coma, death, seizures, permanent brain damage. Yes, one dose can do that in those people. And nobody's testing for this. Nobody's testing for this MDR1 variation. I don't like to say mutation because it's so common. It's not really a mutation. There's probably reasons for that, but yeah, it can absolutely do serious harm with one dose.
And I wanted to reflect based on toxic bile paradigm, now that it's now called by Dr. Garrett Smith that I've interviewed and who interviewed me the other day, that because of our toxic bile situation that is pretty normal, right? Everybody has the symptoms of bile in their blood where it shouldn't be. And because it's corrosive and it eats through everything, all of those barriers that I have to imagine are all compromised at some level in pretty much everybody.
Exactly. And I'm not going to get into too much of this, but if you didn't happen to have that variation, they have drugs that will inhibit this enzyme, so it will act as if you had the mutation. And guess what those are? HCQ is one. Grapefruit is another. And there's hundreds of natural, quote unquote, natural MDR1 inhibitors. So those will all slow down detox. Azoles are also one. Methylene blue is one. So if you take these together, it could be as if you had that mutation and you won't be able to detox this stuff at all. And you could, so then promoting these together is especially evil. So they weren't even depending on a certain amount of the population getting poisoned from this. They were also making sure anybody who took it was also acting as if they had the mutation and it was getting into their organs. And of course, over time too, ivermectin itself is an inhibitor of this protective enzyme that helps form all your barriers too. So over time, even if you felt okay, pretty quickly it's going to start to build up and it's going to start to accumulate and turn around on you. So it's not good. So here's we'll go into the
jump
origin.
in, Kelsey? Sorry to interrupt. Just before we go any further. So somebody's asking, why does it poison? How does it harm? I think we're talking about that exact thing because it's got, is it polysorbate, not some number that crosses the blood-brain barrier that is also in the pokies. What is the action of harm?
Well, it's a toxin. The soil bacteria makes an ivermectin. So this is Streptomyces avermetilis, makes a toxin to protect itself in the soil against bugs eating it and against other bacteria that would inhibit its reproduction. So it is intended at the outset to be a poison. and a very broad poison too. So the Avermetilus bacteria makes this to prevent fungus, to prevent bugs, higher organisms like that, to prevent even mammals from eating things that it has, infected. So it was meant to be a toxin at the beginning. And we have to understand that too, is that plants and bacteria don't make compounds for our benefit. They make compounds for their benefit. They make it's chemical warfare that plants have to do to survive, because they can't move, and bacteria can only move, a small amount too. So they have to depend on some serious chemical warfare to survive and spread. Ivermectin, I can't exactly get into the details, but it messes with your neurons. It's very non-specific in the proteins that it binds to and kind of damages. I talked about a little bit earlier about prion disease. It actually induces prion disease and causes protein misfolding and gunks up everything. This is a very broad spectrum toxic and just interferes with all sorts of processes in the body. And it has to be broad spectrum because that Avermetilus needs to fight off against a lot of things that are bigger than it and that want to take its place. So I hope that's helpful.
Very well described. And is it polysorbate 80, or do you know which?
Yeah, polysorbate 80 is also something, a penetration enhancer. So I'm glad that she mentioned that. DMSO too. Everybody's heard about DMSO and how you can take DMSO and then touch a lemon and then you taste a lemon. It just brings it past just about any barrier. It doesn't even go through the MDR1 enzyme that we talked about earlier. It just brings things right through.
Exactly. A couple more questions in the chat. Makes you wonder if those nasal swabs in 2020 were damaging people's blood-brain barriers. Do you know if there's a parallel there, or is that something different?
I think so. Yeah. I think it was lowering their blood-brain barrier, at least in that area. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then what about references in regards to toxicity in humans that still eat farm animals? So this is something we rely on, that we get good meats from the farmer, but if they're busy ivermectining or anything like this, their animals, then I guess it's all in there, eh?
Yeah. So I have links to show that it's concentrates in eggs and especially fat. So I'll just tell you that the best way to protect against yourself, if you can't for some reason get organic, grass-fed, all that, and organic chicken and organic eggs, and I don't recommend eating eggs anyways, but excuse me, go for a leaner cut, a leaner ground beef, because it tends to build up in the fat and fat soluble toxins, as we know from the Love Your Liver program, are some of the most hard to detoxify. They're persistent. So just go for lean meat or cook your meat and then pour out the fat. Don't use the fat, stay low fat. And that's the best way to protect yourself. Even organic, I think even if you have organic, it's good to try to keep it lean.
Okay, very good. And I'm also going to put up a banner to join the Love Your Liver training that I have no affiliate relationship with. By the way, I probably would have made a ton of cash if I had already, which I'm not complaining. But is this the correct URL, members.nutritiondetective.com?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where you can join the Love Your Liver program. I highly recommend it. It's $199 for lifetime access, including all of the information, articles, updates that get made there, but also a live forum where you can discuss with, up to 2,000 other people who have got results or are getting results and will help you along the way. So that's been priceless for me.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you. Yes. I also highly recommend it.
Of course. And Kelsey is a practitioner there. I'm actually doing consults with her right now.
Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about the origin of the parasite panic. Okay, so you have those of you watching have probably seen, TikToks and Instagram posts or Twitter posts or any other type of media telling you that, oh, they don't want you to know this, but cancer is parasites, and autism is parasites, and this is, pretty much every condition under the sun, they're trying to blame against parasites. And they're trying to tell you that quote unquote Rockefeller medicine, and the Flexner report, is that what it's called? I don't know. But when Rockefellers basically took over all types of medicine and kind of made it allopathic, they think that the Rockefellers weren't also heavily invested in fighting infectious diseases, such as parasites, but they had their hand in that, very much so. So to say that you're onto some secret, that parasites are behind everything, you're not. This was all very intentional and very intentionally placed and propagandized for. The whole curing parasites in Africa thing is a whole scam. And I don't have the link, but I don't have the link on me, but I have a great source I'll update this with, telling how the supposedly ivermectin cured, this is what it got a Nobel Prize for, supposedly cured river blindness, a parasitic disease in Africa. And it shows you plenty of evidence to show that wasn't even true. It's not even good at, killing parasites. But anyway, so let's take a look at this. Yeah, this is from the Rockefeller Foundation itself. I'm sorry, I talked over you there. What were you saying?
Yeah, if I could jump in with a question, if you're already going to answer it, just I'll defer. But so many people almost every day say that they have to use some kind of anti-parasite on their animals, their dogs, their, livestock, whatever it is. So and then we're looking for alternatives. But I know for a fact the alternatives are bad too, because the parasites are not the problem. The metals are the problem. And so if you kill the parasites, you're actually killing what is saving them from the metals. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if you have destroyed your gut bacteria from toxins, or, you were accidentally toxified, or you took something that killed your good bacteria, then something stronger, I believe, starts to take hold to try to protect you. Like the body's trying to protect you, and parasites will come in there. They'll eat dead tissue because they really only, feast on dead tissue. They'll sequester metals. That's been shown, toxic heavy metals. So that is part of the Herxheimer effect too, I guess, a little bit, is that, those metals are suddenly come out. But where was I lost my train of thought for a second.
Well, I was just curious what to say, because people are looking for alternatives to the chemical drugs.
Yeah.
But those alternatives are on the wrong paradigm, based on the parasite panic craze Rockefeller invention. So then it goes back to love your liver, right? Whether you're an animal or a human, you have to detox, correct?
Yeah. They feed on dead tissue, and they feed on metals, or at least they're sequestering them. They actually help you recycle a niacin, which is important for NAD+, which is used in so many systems in your body. So they're actually, your body is allowing them, because your body is so strong. Like some germs, some parasites, in a healthy environment, if you're healthy, if you're not super toxic, you can fight out just about anything. Even Lyme disease, which I was convinced was this awful bacteria that I supposedly have. Your body knows what to do, and it knows what it's doing, and it even knows what it's doing when it's allowing parasites to flourish. The parasites don't flourish if there's no dead tissue to eat. So don't kill your tissue and feed them. Don't have heavy metals in them that they have to clean up. And no, I'm not advocating for parasites here. They're just a symptom of the problem. They're not a solution, and it's kind of a kiss-curse thing, because having parasites, of course, can cause other problems too. They might be keeping you upright, but you're not going to feel good. But life finds a way. And so just don't feed them by killing your tissues, basically.
Right. And to emphasize, they are the symptom, not the cause of disease. Yeah. Okay. So that's the shift that needs to happen there. They're not actually the
Yeah, or
enemy.
when they say they find parasites in tumors, that may be true, but are they in there causing the cancer, or are they in there trying to clean things up?
Exactly. And see, this always happens. No offense, Avatar, but someone presents all of the traditional detox herb for parasites like wormwood, black walnut hulls, cloves, and garlic. Those are all poisons, from what I understand. Right.
They
So
are.
it's not the good way to go. And we've been indoctrinated to think that the words traditional and natural are mean that they're healthy, but like Kelsey just described, how it's plant warfare. Just because it occurs in nature doesn't mean that it's good for us. They are out for themselves, just like we are as animals out for ourself, our survival. And so this is the paradigm. This is the paradigm that you need to look at so closely and see, is there an emotional attachment to it, or are you free to learn and see by evidence, not just science papers, not just 2,000 people who are getting results, but your own evidence. That's what proved it to me. When I stopped taking all of this, my body sighed a very deep relief.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And are tapeworms
Okay.
the same? Sorry, Kelsey, we might get stuck a little bit here.
Sure. Are tapeworms the same? I don't know as much about tapeworms. I know more about the smaller parasites and how they recycle energy for us and protect against heavy metals. I'm not sure about tapeworms, but of course those can get really big and cause obstruction and everything too. So yeah, if you've got a big tapeworm, if you detoxify yourself and get rid of the heavy metals, it could just detach and leave. If it has nothing to eat, it's going to die and leave. And so we don't feed it by poisoning our tissues and so it can have dead tissue to eat.
Okay, and
I think that's what ropeworm is too.
Yeah, and I have to. Sorry to interrupt. I have to address this, that I'm for this stream, I'm going to remove anybody that promotes ivermectin. But I get, Jennifer, that you're probably more asking for, you're asking for information, but it sounds like promoting it. So please, at this point, refrain. This isn't the day or the time to promote ivermectin. I will remove people, but it's not because I don't love you. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, so this is from the Rockefeller Foundation themselves. Okay, they always tell you, and I'm not going to get into there, but you can find the information to know what they're doing. You can find the magician's trick if you know what to look for. And here it is published here. So it started with hookworm disease, and Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates, may be related to Bill Gates. I don't know. I couldn't find it, but these things do tend to run in families. The eugenicist thing. Okay, so they started this propaganda campaign. People were getting poisoned, especially cotton farmers down in the South. Poor whites and Black people were getting poisoned by lead compounds. Lead and arsenic compounds were being put on the cotton crops. These people couldn't even afford shoes, so they were walking all over this. They would often go to the bathroom in the fields that had, these lead compounds in there. And lo and behold, these little worms started showing up to try to eat these arsenic and lead compounds to try to protect you. But they didn't blame it on the new pesticides at the time, of course. They blamed it on the little worms that showed up to help. And they said that these little worms could make you lazy. You could be like a yokel. The word cracker originated from this. The stereotype of the slow Southerner that's just lazy and got a piece of hay in his mouth. This all started. Here's a picture of the cotton fields. Here, the pesticides were starting to really ramp up here, especially lead and arsenic compounds. They couldn't even afford shoes. They didn't pay them enough to get an adequate protein, so they couldn't make niacin, which is so important. So they all had pellagra. They spent $1 million at the time. So this was a big thing. Let me see if there's any other meat from here. Okay, so they would go around to white and black poor rural farmers. They would show the pictures of these worms that were protecting them. And they would say, we need to kill these worms and then you'll feel better. We need to build these outhouses to protect you. And that probably did help, because at least they're not stepping on the waste, and getting retoxified. Let me see if there's anything else that we can talk about this. Okay. And this is, documents from the campaign. This was a big campaign.
A campaign for what?
To eradicate hookworm in Southerners.
Got it.
That when they were actually being poisoned by the new pesticides.
Right.
They wanted to misdirect people. They had fairs, so they're appealing to the child there. They're appealing to fear by showing them these hookworms. They had propaganda. Here's the book at the time, scaring people that these disgusting worms were in their blood, and making people anemic. And you'll see the enlarged belly here. That was actually liver damage.
Yes.
Same thing happened today, liver damage.
I know it now. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was immune to the parasite thing. Every time someone tried to push it on me, my mind would just say no, and I'd turn away. It didn't get me until, of course, during the pandemic, and we found wormwood all over the farm that I work at. And so I made a tincture and I started taking it, and it was part of the, breakdown that I had a couple of years ago. I don't think it was the exact cause, but yeah, I found out firsthand how poisonous that stuff is.
It is. And I was growing some tansy, which is also an anti-parasitic, and I was putting a little bit of that on my eggs. So I totally get that. Yeah, and it's a detox inhibitor, and wormwood was in absinthe, and that was responsible for making people even more drunk. People have heard of like the absinthe and like the Moulin Rouge and the I don't remember what that time period is called, but anyways, also a wormwood compound won the Nobel Prize with ivermectin, which is a lot of people don't know that. The same year, a wormwood derived compound won the Nobel Prize. So it's a binary weapon, a wormwood and other similar compounds with ivermectin, and it is to poison you even more strongly than ivermectin itself. Okay, so yeah, this is just about basic propaganda. I think everybody should read this, but just to wrap it up, look at all these programs that they were involved in. These are all parasite programs. Treponematosis, hookworm in Brazil, eradicate schistosomatitis. I can't say some of these things. That's another parasitic disease. Syphilis is a very parasitic little spiral bacteria. Let's see what else. Coffee workers in Colombia. I mean, look at all these things. Like, they were heavily involved in infectious and quote unquote tropical diseases. And it isn't that convenient. These are places where not very good records are being kept, or they can control all the record keeping, and there's not going to be a lot of reporting on what's going on and how toxic these programs are, and they can report back whatever they like about the success of these various programs. So yeah, this just goes on and on and on. So I think that is very, very eye-opening. Okay, let's go back to my presentation. Okay, so there's that. I do recommend, I do link that on Twitter a lot, that article. And there's some other really interesting things in there too. This is the toxic drug they gave, Epsom salts. You guys have all heard of the liver gallflesh. They used that back then. And this compound that they were given called chenopodium is literally explosive. It looks like a little sunglasses guy, and that bond literally breaks and explodes in your body. Very bad stuff.
Wow.
Okay, so we have back in the South, they had Southern doctors that people trusted all get on board with this hookworm propaganda campaign. And we have the same thing nowadays.
Yes, Edward Group. Yeah.
I have a lot to say about him. But he's so likable, and he talks with a Southern drawl even, and even Dr. Artis, he talks with that Texas accent too, and he's, they seem very relatable and homey, and they are the parasite propagandists of the day, scaring people, putting them into that fear zone, into that black and white thinking, that kill or be killed, us versus them kind of thing. And they have stuff to sell you too.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in here and say that a lot of people are getting their minds blown. And while part of me thinks that is the most beautiful thing, and that you are so courageous to allow your mind to be blown, it means that you're learning. It means that you've opened and taken in not this information, right? Everything is there for you to check, although I love Kelsey's science approach, but it is cause for some grief, right? It's a loss of a framework in your mind that's very much attached to your emotions. It's attached to the programming around life and death, because we run to these remedies as a way to save our life, and then they kill us. And it creates quite a confusion inside. So I just want you to know that on the other side of all of this cognitive dissonance is immense freedom and reality. I didn't think I would understand reality to the degree that I do now. I thought it wasn't, you couldn't figure it out. But lo and behold, there's a lot more that we can understand than I even expected. And God bless you. It is an act of courage to stay open to new information. Not everybody's there right now. Could I just also quickly check one thing?
Sure.
Barbara James, hello, nice to have you here. The reason that ivermectin appears to work is that it blocks the liver's detox system, which is overloaded and spilling out into the bloodstream of people and animals. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. And there is one other thing that I think is important. There is the placebo effect. Of course, we tend to. It's so underrated. If I was scared and I was, on oxygen in the hospital, and then, somebody said, "Don't worry, we have this drug is going to cure you." Like, that goes a long way. That's part of it. And then there's also the mechanism effect too. So we talked about seeing stars earlier, and people were getting high off this stuff. That's because ivermectin stimulates opioid receptors. So I think everybody's heard of opioids. So it acts like an opioid drug to relieve pain, right? And also kind of helps with anxiety. And it also helps agonizes, or it activates GABA receptors. And that's like alcohol or benzodiazepines. So it acted as an anti-anxiety drug and a pain reliever. So that is a huge thing. So people were really scared. Oh, I'm going to have to go to the hospital. I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get COVID. And then you gave them an anti-anxiety drug and a pain relief, so they're not feeling those aches and pains of the flu they have. They're going to think they felt better. And unfortunately, they're going to tell everybody else that they felt better too. And that's a big part of the thing that we're fighting against too, is we're trying to explain that's why they felt better. So but it's like, it's so toxic though, that it's like huffing paint or drinking gasoline to feel better, that some people resort to. Or even there's a drug called like crocodile or something like that, which is, industrial stuff that makes people really sick, and it gets them high, but it literally causes their flesh to die. So yeah, that's why I hope that, does that make sense, Barbara?
It does make sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Matt from Cultivate, Elevate? He's done some videos against ivermectin, which I appreciate, and methylene blue, which I appreciate, but he often throws in some of those alternatives, like you could just use wormwood, or you could just use this or that.
Yeah. So I like that he's doing that. And those alternatives may be slightly less toxic, but so I do repost his videos sometimes, but I always try to put a disclaimer like, okay, this is good information, but don't try those alternatives. Yeah, so those alternatives that he's saying are just herbal antiparasitics and herbal detox inhibitors.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Okay. So let's this sometimes helps wake people up. I'll just say the intro first before I go back to it. This is Bill Gates's involvement. He even bragged about his involvement with supposedly fighting parasites, especially in Africa. And it even shows him on camera giving ivermectin and albendazole. You've probably heard of fenbendazole. They're very similar drugs, and they act similarly synergistically to make ivermectin more toxic. You see him literally give this on camera to people.
I'm in the world's foremost parasite museum here in Tokyo.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. It's kind of cool. It's kind of gross. In history, there was a lot of parasitic infection in all countries. Fortunately, a lot of that's been eliminated, but it's great for people to come and learn about the burden that's there and the great work that's going on. More than 1 billion people in developing countries suffer from parasitic diseases, including guinea worm, sleeping sickness, elephantiasis, river blindness. These are the so-called neglected tropical diseases. There's a few, like guinea worm, that's down to very small numbers. We have others that we have very good tools that the drug companies actually donate the drugs. As people take these drugs that will clear them, and so the burden is going down slowly but surely. My favorite part of my visit was seeing the world's largest tapeworm. It's 29 feet long. You don't want to have it. It's a real reminder of how parasites start small and grow big, and they're a huge drain on people's health because the worm is essentially taking the nutrition away. That's an extreme case, but a lot of kids, because of the worms, their ability to succeed in school's not very good. You can't thrive when you have these diseases. That's why our foundation continues to work with partners to eliminate parasitic diseases and the burdens they create. That's good. It's better on the outside.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's a good one. If you think sometimes that wakes people up to see that Bill Gates is behind a lot of this and, guilty by association. But again, for reasons I talked about, it doesn't always work for that. And they'll come up with all sorts of excuses for why Bill Gates is heavily involved with ivermectin and donation in antiparasitics in developing countries. This is just some links to his various involvements in those programs. For example, the malaria and TB shots are just ivermectin. Supposedly this doesn't. Yes, it's just ivermectin.
They got me.
Yeah, they were responsible for the trial for COVID. This stuff is so toxic that it doesn't even fight the parasite directly. What it supposedly does is they give it to people, and then the biting insects don't eat them, and therefore they won't spread the parasite. Yeah, so it's not even a direct antiparasitic. It's that, it's killing the bug. So it's insecticide. They're admitting it's insecticide. It's killing the bug that carries the disease. So they're making people human poison bait traps when they can just literally give them nets. I mean, it's just, it's so mind-blowing. So think about how toxic something has to be where just licking a drop of your blood kills the thing. That's very toxic.
Oh my goodness.
And the nice little euphemism for it is insecticide.
There you go.
Very, very toxic. Mm-hmm.
Could I jump in with a question?
Sure, of course.
So This is one of the claims, and I don't mean to doubt it, but that there's nanoparticles in both the jibby jabs and ivermectin. Do you see it that way, or is that, and then that leads to biodigital convergence, which is like the ultimate psyop that we all end up, half machine, half all, wired up and unable to function in the world without that convergence?
Well, the reason why I do tend to question that is, I mean, certainly there's particles that are not good for you in there, in addition to the supposed mRNA or whatever's in there. I don't even think it's mRNA. I could talk about that too. But I think that's a lot of that information is being put out by people who also want to sell you something, and by people who are also want to sell you something that's poison. So that's why
the guy that I know that goes the hardest on biodigital I can't even say convergence, doesn't appear to be selling one little thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just making generalizations here, but that's why I tend to fight that information. Like, it seems like fearful. I also think there was a letter that went out about eugenics. I can't remember what it's called, but nowhere in there did they talk about viruses or parasites or bacteria. This letter that's supposedly linked, that laid out for the agenda, it was all about poisons and soft metals, aka heavy metals. I think it's all just very cheap poison. I think what these people do is, money is energy too, and they can't print out forever and forever print out all the money they want, because that lowers their own portfolio. Okay, so they use money too, and it's going to lose value if they keep printing it. They want to take it from you. So what I say is, they want us sick, they want us stupid, they want us dead, they want us infertile, and they also want to make a profit. So nanotechnology, nanobots, those are all very expensive. Your body excretes them the best they can. So if they can get away with something that has the same effect for very, very cheap, so that they can make a higher profit, they will. So I think that what's in the vaccines, and ivermectin is super cheap too, because it's literally just bacteria poop. It's just grown in a brewery. Everybody's been to like BJ's Pizza or something, seen those giant stills. That's basically how ivermectin's grown, super cheap. If they can get away with that, with having their agenda fulfilled as cheaply as possible, they will, so that they can keep 99% of the money. I don't think they're doing anything expensive like mRNA, which is very hard. Like when I worked with mRNA in school, a tiny little, like not even a milliliter, just a speck of this mRNA stuff, $1,500. So are they spending $1,500 on every pokey that they put in your arm, or would they rather just put a little bit of poison in there and save that $1,500? I mean, there's inflation and everything too, and economies of scale, but I think that it's still expensive. It's still not a great technology. We have all sorts of enzymes to cut up any foreign DNA, so it also wouldn't be effective. So that's basically the point I'm trying to make, is that I'm more willing to believe that they'd rather do something that's cheap.
Excellent points. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, this is just more information about the Africa programs, and Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein met with the Nobel Prize chair 6 months before they gave it out. So that was very interesting. That he kind of almost bought that Nobel Prize, we think. And what else here? Oh yeah, I have a lot on Bill Gates. Oh my gosh, I forgot how much I have on that. And I think, am I done? Yes. Okay. I think that's all. All right. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Beth, was there something else we were going to cover?
I can just take a look. I did have a couple of questions, and it depends on your time. Are you okay for a few more questions?
Yes.
Okay. And
let me get some water. Just a sec. I'm just going to get some water.
take your time. Take your time. And yes, Jennifer, I did already share the link, but I can share it again to the original presentation. So you can go and watch in even more detail than she gave today. So this is the link to that video. And everyone can open that. I do recommend going to that channel and subbing to that channel because all of the solutions are there. You're welcome. And,
okay, I'm back.
Okay, very good. So I'll take a look at my questions. There's one in the chat already. Maybe while I get mine open. What about what do you think about mosquito-borne illness? Is that a thing, or is that a big psyop too?
Yeah, I think that is a psyop. I think they poison the rivers and put pesticides in there to supposedly kill the mosquitoes, and then it kills the local people's gut bacteria, and then the parasites come in, and then they blame the parasite. I don't really think there's much to mosquito-borne illness, and also it's used as a pretext for spraying cities. There was a little bit of a West Nile scare and stuff, and they just spray the whole city. Just they go in at night and they just everywhere, and they say, "Oh, it's to protect you from mosquito-borne illness." So, yeah,
tragic. I grew up my whole life. For a time, people fought against the trucks and the machines, and you can turn it off within your little neighborhood, but then your neighbors hate you because you're the only one that then they all have to go without it. And it's been banned in many places, but not here. So it's so many levels of poisoning. It's really insane. I wanted to ask about the blindness in particular. Why ivermectin might cause blindness?
Okay, well, it will go past the retinal barrier, which is in your eye. Okay, especially if you take it with one of those detox inhibitors that's often pushed with, and it will stick there. It will have a hard time getting out, and it will do its damage to the nerves in the eye, and the tracks along that go into the brain as well. So we talked about seeing stars. Visual snow is the chronic condition that can arise from this thing. That's where everything looks kind of like squiggles everywhere and colors. And, I've probably been toxed for various pesticides too. So I have visual snow. And, when I look at a blank background, I see all sorts of fireworks when I close my eyes. So that's neuro damage. So that's not like damage necessarily to the cones and rods, but it will damage those too. But it's the nerves along there. It's that fatty tissue, because nerves are fatty. And we talked about earlier how ivermectin will accumulate in fatty tissues like nervous tissue.
I hadn't made that connection between the neurons and neurological tissue and fat. So that's profound. And then, so it's not a spiritual experience. I was actually seeing those lights the other day. Like I was seeing that little ping, 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 ping. And I'm going, I wonder what the heck that is. So now I know. Thank you.
Well, okay, that may be something different, because I see those too. And I maybe those are good. I'm not sure, but the oil slick I don't think is great, and like the fuzz is not the best thing. But maybe those little squiggles, I don't know. Sometimes I like to think of those as I don't know, maybe just bions or life force of the universe. But that's a whole different conversation.
Exactly. I wanted to recommend Garrett's not interview, but live stream on carrots and the psyop of carrots, and how they were actually trying to damage the enemy's eyesight so they couldn't fly at night. And this is a very big awakening. I do have a student, excuse me, who now has had to change her glasses twice because her eyes improved so much from not getting vitamin A. Okay, wow. So this is another big one. If you still think vitamin A is good for you, please do listen to my interviews. That previous one with Kelsey, 3 with Garrett, and then his channel. And this one with carrots, it showed the propaganda, the World War II propaganda, where they convinced people, and it's stuck ever since. That's the power of propaganda.
Bugs Bunny and Popeye and Gates is heavily involved. Let's mention that. We just talked about Gates, not only the pokies, not only the anti-parasitic programs, but also vitamin A distribution.
Exactly.
across developing countries. Yes. Oh, and GMO that has more vitamin A.
Right. And then RFK, that there was that thing going around that the headline made it look like he was promoting ivermectin, but when you really looked at the article, he was actually promoting vitamin A. Fascinating.
Yes, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I actually got a letter from someone very polite, and I wanted to, they expressed some doubt about this ivermectin video that he watched of yours. And um, so the arguments that you made, you say it's a poison, you note that every substance is potentially a poison. Could you please speak to that?
Every sense I don't remember saying that, but okay.
No,
So
you didn't say that. He's saying that. And this is always the defense of the natural health, that
Yeah.
every substance is potentially poison. Even water is poison, right?
Oh.
But it's not true. It's a total, I don't know the word for it, BS.
It's programming. It's the dose makes the poison programming, right? Like
That's it.
if it's not an essential nutrient, then it isn't poisonous. It can be toxic at high doses. That's a different word. That's an important distinction, but it's not the dose makes the poison.
Right. Poison is poison at any dose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
and with accumulating things like fatty compounds like ivermectin or vitamin A or D, rat poison, it can be over worse, and it can be hard to tell over time as this is happening as well.
Yeah, so that was basically the argument. I don't know if I need to go into it's kind of extensive more there, but
yeah. Oh, I think we wanted to talk about if we have time, why the ivermectin research and all the research and why it's bogus. So, but go ahead with whatever question you want to do that now.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So people will say, oh, the ivermectin has all this research on it. Just go on PubMed and type in ivermectin and cancer. Prepare to be blown away. And you can do that, and people will do that, and they'll see thousands of results for this supposed compound that has no money behind it. Somehow there's quite a lot of research. And it'll look like this cures cancer. This has all these mechanisms and everything. And I tell people, it doesn't matter. Those are cell studies. There's a few animal studies. It doesn't work in humans. It's too toxic. And basically every single chemo drug is a toxin. What it's doing is it's killing your detox storage cells, the tumors that are trying to protect you, that are trying to sequester and detox this stuff. Okay. But they are a little bit more susceptible to poisons because they're rapidly dividing, to try to keep up with you and what you're unintentionally doing to yourself. So you can shrink them. You can kill them in a petri dish, but you can pour rock salt and kill cancer cells in a petri dish. You can put arsenic, you can put mercury. It'll kill them. Lots of things will kill cells in a dish. That doesn't mean it cures it in a human body. It's not a cure. If people are saying on the internet, and they are a lot these days, oh, I took it and it lowered my PSA and it shrunk this tumor and it shrunk that tumor. First of all, I'm not seeing any imaging on that, so I do question that a little bit, but technically it could, because it's poisoning so much that it's actually shrinking and killing the storage cells, and those toxins are just being redistributed. I can't say it. Redistributed, and you're going to get it later. You never say your cancer is cured. Even medical doctors don't do that. They say you're in remission, because it always comes back. You may have shrunk those tumors. Now those toxins are in different places, but your body starts to sense, oh, we're getting toxified. We better, make some more tumors and store this and try to detox our person. But it always comes back. And the same with IVM. It may shrink them, but it's going to come back. And it's very toxic to all organ systems.
And I can give testament to any biopsies I consider them to be dangerous. Every time I received a biopsy, I would get instantly way sicker. Why? Because they opened up that nice little pocket. My body was smart enough to sequester it away. And then you open it up and boom, it's systemic and she's down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the tumors
It
actually
all
work.
makes so much sense when you understand what's really going on with cancer. Yeah.
Yeah, the tumors actually work for you. That was a really big shift in my awareness. Yeah, the body doesn't make mistakes. Here's the principle that I love to follow is that the body is a favor of slow death rather than fast death, and that's partly to do with why your body would create tumors as well.
Yep.
Emil is asking, how did vitamins get their letter name? It's an interesting area to look into. Isolating molecules and compounds is only cool until man gets lost.
Oh, yeah, and we could do a whole episode on vitamins that aren't actually vitamins.
Let's do it. I would love that.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to do that.
Okay.
But the skinny on that basically is that vitamins were at first named in order of their discovery. Okay, but who discovered them? And the answer is chemical and pharmaceutical companies, quote unquote, discovered them. And and fortification programs, D requirements for copper pipes for indoor plumbing, B vitamins and iron and calcium fortification in grains. What I believe, and I think I can prove this fairly well, it just takes some looking at, is that these quote unquote vitamins that were actually pesticides that kept grains from being eaten by bugs and spoiling. And in order for you to accept these additives, that these pesticides that we're putting on there, they told us that they were vitamins and they were essential and they were good for you.
And then the kicker is that you get addicted to poison. You actually want that. When you're poisoned, you want more poison. It's so hard. It's so confusing to figure that out. But you start
alcohol and cigarettes is the classic example. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is my questions for the moment, and I don't see any more in the chat. And boy, I'm so grateful that you're able to come and share all of this and be patient while I fired questions at you continuously. So thank you for being a good multitasker about that.
No worries. It was a great back and forth and conversation, and I love the connections you made with your work too. And you said a lot of profound things and made me think about some things differently too. So I appreciate your input as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I couldn't help myself. And I did have a vulnerability hangover after I did that interview when Garrett interviewed me on his channel. But I thought to myself, you know what? If there's going to be a person, like you said about the starfish story, that gets the benefit, I would rather have everybody know my medical history and run out. Like this is one request I have to make is please don't run after me telling me what I should take and what I should do. And especially not ivermectin now, please. This I find, I won't be gentle.
Yeah. The bloom is off the rose for ivermectin.
Yeah,
for me
exactly.
too.
Exactly. This was kind of scary. We have taken some attacks already on it. And, so the more support that everybody here could be, and speak the truth. Do not be afraid to speak the truth. You don't have to force someone. You don't have to be mean with them. You don't have to be upset with them if they don't want to listen to you. That's okay. You can still care about them, but at least give them the chance to know. Don't protect their ego and their idea. Let's band together a little bit and let people know what kind of a thing this is, because there are some really big names making millions of dollars, and I'm not talking mainstream people here. I don't want to call anyone out really specifically at this moment, but let's stand up and speak this truth, because we're supposed to be the smart ones that we avoided the poison injections and we're all so proud of ourselves, and then we just go and get the same poison somewhere else. Right.
We rebelled a little bit too hard. And this is another point I want to make too, is that, okay, let's say I know this is hard to imagine because we're good people listening here, but imagine your goal was to depopulate the earth or lower the population, lower the fertility and the birth rates, and also have a more compliant citizenry too going forward in the future that will be easier to maintain your hold on them and to, parasitize off of them basically. So Who are you going to target with harder, more chronic, more poison programs? The rebel that you're just naturally going to have in any population, the rebel or the sheeple, who are already doing what you said. And they're going to, you need to lower some of them too, but you'd like it to favor them as opposed to the rebel. You'd rather the rebel pass on less of their genes and their outlook, right? You want more of the yeah. So if you're doing that, who are you going to hit harder with the poison programs? You're going to hit the rebels. Okay.
Oh my
So
goodness,
that's what's
Kelsey.
going on. Yeah.
Wow. Yep. I knew they
So
needed
I
to
think,
get us harder. Yep. You got it.
yep. So that's why I
Wow.
think that we us rebels are possibly, a lot of us are more toxic and being more toxified and targeted than the people that took the pokes.
Boom. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Wow. Wow. Well, let's leave it at that mind blown moment for now. And
Thank you.
yeah. Feel free to ask me, like I said, of the archetypes of controlled op. That does help to recognize some of these patterns. And we're all learning together. And God bless us. I missed your comment, Tammy, about gay and trans community and the HEP, HIV and HEP. But we're maybe going to have to save that for another discussion. I just wanted you to know I'm not missing. And I appreciate your support so much, Tammy. She is a smart one, really good researcher, and someone you want to know. All right, everyone, have a beautiful rest of your day. I am. Do you want me to play you out with another clip from my son? I could do that and show a few more comments. And thank you again, Kelsey. It's really been fantastic.
Sure, sounds good. Play us out.
Okay,
Thank you,
sounds
Ben.
good. Okay, you're very welcome. Give me 1 second to set this up. This is still a little bit chunky, but this is my son playing. It was him playing at the beginning as well. And I just have to put that up. All right, my dear, so much love to you.
Thank you, you too.